every rider.
They will.
They will, to everybody, so
That's
they're gonna
business.
wind up making money.
But it means that demand will go
Because they only
down.
have, wait, they only have to pay once a day if they're
No,
going.
no,
just-
no. No, Uber has to pay. Uber's treated differently. Uber and Lyft
Oh,
for hire
could you
vehicles.
explain that?
It's a
then?
for-hire
treated
vehicle.
I'm
differently.
sorry, I misunderstood.
Yes.
Yes,
Mr. Schwartz,
yes.
on behalf of the group, I apologize for my being late. We wouldn't let me up, I was here at 1 p.m. We have some cockamamie for the security mission because the Taliban is targeting.
Let's just get to the question.
Get to the
I
question.
understand
You
your
are
question.
causing this. When one takes a yellow cab, there's a 50-cent surcharge for the MTA. Any comment, could I have a comment about the green, not the green, or maybe green, but the Uber, the Lyft?
Yeah, we
flight,
spoke
the
about that already, Alan.
50-cent surcharge. Keep quiet. This is not the Trudy Mason Transit Council. Trudy, you have to understand
Alan,
that,
ask him.
not to monopolize it. And Earl, you're a good chair. You really, no, really. He can handle me, he can handle everyone.
Okay, your question.
Charging 50 cents for the MTA for these other things, which I'm against because you choose to use them and not use the MTA.
Okay, well, there will be additional charges for Uber, for Lyft, for Via, for yellow taxis, and under the Move New York plan, 75% of that goes to transit, 25% goes to roads and bridges. I do believe a portion, and in the early Move New York, would go back to drivers, for driver health benefits and other kinds of things. Under the fixed NYC, 100% of it goes to transit. Maybe that formula will change. So there's going to be no change that I know of in the 50-cent fee. All this will be tacked on top of that.
Thank you.
And when you say transit, it's generically to MTA, because it's also going to LIRR and Metro North. It's the MTA.
Yeah, unless the mayor, the mayor hasn't weighed in. And I think the mayor made a mistake because he could have been in the game. So right now, yes, so it goes to the MTA. He could have said, well, ferries are transit, or I want you to maintain the East River bridges, or things like that. But he's coming in pretty late. If I was in the city, I would have said that was a bad gambit.
Yeah. Omar.
Yes. Hello. My name is Omar Vera. I believe we may have met before. I don't know when, but I'll just get to the point. Yes. About the tolls, I can see your proposals, and we can all respectfully disagree. But I feel like regarding the Port Authority, at least that perspective, I feel like they're being charged too much to cross from Manhattan, like $15. $15 is too much, and so my brother has to often get like a carpool to lower the price down to $6. But $15 is too much, and somebody once noted that the Hudson River is now become like a geographical barrier now, like an invisible wall for people who don't have the money to cross, across every time. And so as for the bridge, like the bridges and tunnels that you're mentioning, even within the same borough, there's still tolls. Like for example, the Cross Bay Bridge is entirely within Queens. And I've been an advocate, and I told Chuck Murtler on the Bridges and Tunnels Committee, they should just eliminate the toll on Cross Bay Bridge because you're just going intra-borough. It doesn't make sense to go. It's one thing if you're going between boroughs. At least you're going like a different boundary, but within the same borough, it's
And
not
then your
fair
question,
because you're
what's the
located in like
question?
the peninsula, and then as a consequence to get free fare, Rockaway's Motors have to go around Nassau County.
What's the question, Omar?
My question is, how can you make like the fares a bit more fair for everyone? Because every 2 years they're always increasing the fares. They're always increasing the fares without anyone getting like the minimum wage. And of course, that's basically getting a bunch of commuters mad. That's also like enraging basically the people's MTA. I draw those lunatics.
Okay, you were here for the presentation. I recommended lowering all those tolls. And a slide that I didn't show is the silliness of the Cross Bay Boulevard Bridge that you brought up. That we're charging people to go from Queens to Queens, but not from Queens to the Central Business District across the Queensboro Bridge. In terms of the Hudson River crossings, if you use Easy Pass, it's $12.50 peak hours, $10.50 off peak. If you're using cash, it's $15. If you're using cash to go across the Verrazano Bridge, it's $17. So it's actually more expensive on this side of the Hudson River.
All right, thank you.
You know that there's a one-time charge in a calendar day on the Cross Bay Bridge. When Jay Walder was chairman here, I made that suggestion, rather because so many people had things in the Rockaways who live in Broad Channel, that schools, hospital, whatever.
It's a good thing, and the amount of revenue that we collect from that bridges now.
Yes, Ellen.
I'm not too sure because I'm a lead.
I don't know if this is rude or a privileged question.
Speak up.
Have you presented the mayor directly?
Yeah, I did, when he was a candidate. And,
But
you know, at that time, no, not since. I've tried to set up meetings. I've met with his staff, every DOT, all the DOT people.
No.
But at the time, he said I'm either brilliant or crazy when I showed it to him. And he was very positive
Has he
at that
decided?
time. Nobody has.
He seems like he's
I
easing
think
his
they're
up.
leaning towards crazy. I'll let you guys have a vote after I leave.
You know what I thought? Because he's not contributing to the subway action plan, I always thought that he would relax his opposition to congestion pricing and let that be his contribution to the MTA, you know?
Yeah.
Which seems to be happening a little. One of his representatives, at least, maybe two, on the board, have spoken in favor of this plan.
It would be valuable
Oh,
to have a direct Andrew, presentation.
Uh,
Veronica has?
Who?
Veronica?
Yeah,
Veronica and
is
who
in
else?
favor of it.
David Jones.
Yeah, David
Jones.
Jones.
Oh, David,
Exactly.
yeah, of course,
Yeah.
of
Go ahead.
course, yes.
So, in the phase one, you talked about increasing transit in like the suburbs and like, outer boroughs, but to what extent does the panel address improving like specifically buses within the CBD or like within more congested areas? Like obviously, reduced congestion will naturally improve bus speeds a little bit, but even for instance, London really pumped up service before, like you were saying, before they implemented, or I guess at the same time as the implementation. So I guess my question is, to what extent is the panel talking about buses specifically in the CBD, if at all? And what, I guess, changes?
I think what's happening with buses is part of it is a vicious cycle. We added the Ubers, the Lyfts into the traffic stream. Buses started going slower. Uber, Lyft became so cheap via, sometimes there's a subway token or cheaper than that. And so people began leaving buses. That promoted more people becoming Uber and Lyft and Via drivers. So we had more vehicles on the street. That slowed buses further. And so it was a vicious cycle that just keeps going. We're hoping to undo that vicious cycle and fewer people, there'll be less demand for Uber, less demand for Lyft. And you know who supports this? Uber does. Uber supports it because how could they not if they support surge pricing, which is congestion pricing? So they are supporters because of that same reason I gave you when I was a cab driver. They're losing money. Their drivers are losing money stuck in traffic.
Deborah, and then Randy?
I would like to know, this question I really wanted to ask, the people with, I saw all the groups that you work with, but I didn't see one group that deals with people with disabilities. Have you worked or spoken to any groups with disabilities? And
Yeah,
I'm not talking about black groups, because honestly, I'm just asking fast, they are not fair to people who really need those black groups. So I want to, have you met or made alliances with people with disabilities who have major groups?
It's a great point, and the answer, as far as I know, there's a few other people that are doing it. I haven't personally, and I don't know of efforts, but I think that ultimately the legislature is going to bring people in. But no, you know, what the recommendations are certainly to those people that have the New York City permits are the people that I would recommend some consideration be given to. But as I said, I'm not recommending any exemptions at this point. I do recommend that Access-a-Ride, that the MTA get very aggressive with microtransit. And Access-a-Ride could be turned around in 2 years dramatically. And it's there's microtransit groups that are chomping at the bit to do that because of all the money that goes into Access-a-Ride. But the answer to your question is no. I've probably had 500 meetings on this, groups like this over the years, and I don't recall meeting with people have brought up the issue of disabilities at almost every meeting, but I don't think I met with them. Shame on me.
I'm just saying, the reason I'm suggesting is you don't realize that it's a very big industry because you have specialized vans that have to drive the individuals back and forth to different programs or places who are not physically able to use either the MTA system or even to go with Access-a-Ride. So there are a lot of groups that you've missed the point that would be very open-minded to congesting prices. So you need to alter yourself, meet with disability groups.
Good point.
And I've raised the issue any number of times at the MTA board. If you keep having biannual fare and toll increases, at some point we'll have a $10 fare and $50 tolls. Now, this money, the board is talking about using it for expense, not just capital, which would help either mitigate or reduce some of the proposed toll. So we'll see. Randy?
So did TRC ever vote on this?
Yes.
There's a resolution.
So should we do this next week, 2 weeks at the PCAC and
We
say
surely
we
could. I mean,
If
we're
I-
listed as supporters.
We are- we are
Well, I
support-
wanted to ask a question
But I'm
before-
asking you the question.
Wait a minute,
now. You
Trudy.
have plenty of opportunities to speak.
No, she never.
Go ahead, Randy.
Can we bring it up again and
Absolutely.
make a
Yeah,
resolution?
yeah, I mean, there's I put together a resolution from what I heard last meeting, and I guess, may I continue on with it, sort of a question? One of the things that sort of is troubling me is that this really didn't get into the legislative process. The VIX NYC stuff didn't get fully into the legislative process. I mean, we basically had nothing in the executive budget, the 30-day budget amendments, we got some pieces of it, but not the whole thing. I mean, what's your view on that? Is that something that's a complication? If you get half a loaf, if you just get the TNC piece of it, will it make that much difference? Will that?
No, I wouldn't vote for half a loaf, I'd vote for the whole thing, and I see the glass as half full right now. I can tell you,
Right.
many of my colleagues see it as half empty. Told by people in the governor's office that they're not going to drop the congestion price in Baltimore as we go forward. I have time for, let's say, 2 questions.
Sure.
You can do that.
Yes.
Good afternoon, and thanks for coming. When I last heard you speak at Hunter College Roosevelt House a few months ago, you seemed to say that New Jersey and Port Authority was not engaged in this project. With the new government in Trenton, do you have any value to expanding this program?
Yeah, it's a great point. When I started Move New York, they were included. And then a number of people from the Port Authority in particular said, you've got your hands full with one governor, let Sleeping Christie's lie. So at the moment, I thought if I activated Chris Christie at that point, it could have been a disaster. So the energy really went on the New York State part of it. But I think ultimately, people using the Lincoln and Holland should pay more than people using the Staten Island crossings. It makes no sense. And can we raise more revenue for transit? At that time, my estimate was another 75 million, maybe 100 million, if we included them in it. Maybe a last question now.
Trudy wanted to ask
Yes,
one
I
last
just,
one.
as a conclusion, number one, will our going on record, both as the TRC, Transit Riders Council, and the whole PCAC, be helpful to you?
Yes.
Okay, that was the first question. The second is, what are your next steps in terms of the legislature, in terms of the governor, and everybody else? What do you foresee as your next steps, and how can we also, as individuals and as a group, be helpful in that?
Okay, Move New York is 6 or 8 months ago now. I'm the architect of the plan, but Move New York is an entity that raises money, and again, as I told you, I'm not involved in any of that. Move New York was dead in the summer until the governor had no money, ran out of money, laid off its staff, and it looked like it was over. I would continue doing this as I've been doing on it, but now, all of a sudden, success has 1,000 parents, and failure's an orphan, right? So all of a sudden, a number of groups are coming forward, and they are supporting Move New York. So Move New York is going to have a campaign going forward. We'll have a public relations campaign. We'll have a political campaign that meets with elected officials. What you could do is nail down your elected officials. I am shocked at some things that I hear. I heard an elected official from Manhattan, I won't name the person, say,
I know.
I have constituents who on the weekend, they go out to the Hamptons down, they're gonna have to pay to come down. If,
I know exactly.
someday when this is all over, I'm gonna write the 10 stupidest things I've heard, and all 10 were from elected officials.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I'll take that out of the camera.
And it's too late, it's on,
That's why I was
it's on,
asking.
it's on tape. I will note that we do participate in the Move New York bi-weekly calls, and you know, things are out there. I think they're waiting for the right time to push some of this stuff out into the public eye a little bit more, so.
Thank you so much.
You gonna
Sam.
invite
Thank you all.
So Bill, you gonna write something up and circulate?
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
write
that.
something up. There's you know, we have a, in fact,
Does TRC have to approve the thing before we get it before the whole council,
well,
or?
no, I mean, it can be different. Where we stand right now is that PCAC is on record as being a supporter of congestion pricing. We did pass in the earlier move for.
Long Island Council approve that?
I don't know, but that was
We're
a
already
PCA,
on.
that was a decision at PCAC level, so it's, so
Okay.
But it may,
It
by
may not-
revisiting
it may
it,
not require the full, you know, the full support of Long Island Council.
yeah.
We did, there were a lot of comments about, and there were pieces of resolution, I'll say, last month, and I did put together what I felt was the resolution that was made from that. Why don't we
But and
pass
is there a
that
value again, where it's passed in two councils and then you've got two groups behind you, you know, as opposed to the PCAC, just the PCAC and the New York City Transit Irish Council and the Metro North Council. Those have names in it that resonate with residents, I think, so there can be a value to do it by council.
It would be, unless you have,
Because people don't necessarily know the PCAC.
right, unless you have a council, you know, I mean, it could backfire.
Well, if you have one, but I think we more than likely have two councils.
We
that
probably,
would be-
I expect that we have two.
So the one thing I immediately see that's missing from this resolution is what we had earlier said, which the money must be dedicated to transportation usages and not pilferable by any elected officials. And so language has to be put into here that says
And
that.
it shouldn't be public transportation?
Transportation, I said, because
Public
even Sam's idea was 25% for
But
roads.
when the money
might
is
sell it easier.
collected, what happens is that, I would suggest using the word lockbox. It's something that
we can
everybody
say
knows.
that.
Because otherwise, when the money is collected by the state or the city, you have, everybody's gonna say, no, it's only gonna go to
Did you hear Speaker
transportation.
Johnson's comment on lockbox today?
Yeah, yes, okay.
Every lockbox has a key, you heard
Yeah,
that?
I know, but at least we put in, that, those
Yeah,
words.
it has to be in there.
Which
Well, we can-
everybody understands.
We can put lockbox in there.
That the funds be held in a lockbox, that's what I would suggest, otherwise it's
Yeah,
great.
there-
But Ellen, I know, we shouldn't think this way, but I've lived through this so many times, and I will tell you that once the money comes in,
Oh, no, I know
everybody,
that.
so if you put in, it doesn't guarantee, but it just makes this stronger, that we're saying that you better not screw up, you know?
I just,
Well,
yeah, I wonder if there's precedent of lockbox language that has been more successful.
No, it
The only way you can do a lockbox, really do a lockbox is make it constitutional.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because anything the legislature passes, they can change.
And-
right,
Or
but
do
this
it what
just
Sam
makes
did
it,
with the
this
selling
just
bonds.
makes it
So
a
can
little
you make it
stronger, and it's
constitutional?
also showing that we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's basically two ways you can make it a little harder to get to the money. One, you could have the money not be appropriated, go directly to MTA or wherever it's going, or this other agency that Scott Reckler seems to love. You can do that. You can do that. That makes it a little harder to get at. at the money, but then again, you can just have the other funding can just be cut in the same amount. The other thing you can do is you can bond that money out. And once you've made bond covenants that say, we're going to pay you from these revenues, then that's pretty much
That's what Sam was talking
inviolable.
But,
about. Inviolable.
but if I may, because of what we did when we did the capital program way back when, and that was all bonding and that was bond money, and that has left, it was a great plan that has now been turned negative because of all the, so I would strongly suggest not even thinking about bonding.
I wouldn't put it in here.
No, I wouldn't put it in here, but I'm just saying, this is just for information, basically.
Now, here's the question. Will this, as amended now with the lockbox language, pass the full PCAC?
Well, I don't know.
We can make this the,
What do you think?
you know, we can make this a proposal to the PCAC.
Okay, so,
Metro North rep is here, he
That-
can actually.
but that's why I
This is
asked,
what we,
Most Metro North committee members don't attend the meetings, and
But
the
they-
Long Island Council, I'm not sure how they feel about this.
well,
we can
let's,
get,
Even though this will benefit Long Island Railroad,
if
actually.
you want, at the next PCAC meeting, and I will try to be brief, because I know, and I'm sorry, it was just Alan Flax. There's a reason why I tried to shut him up, and it had,
oh,
like
there's
it is
1,000
before.
reasons.
Okay, but I will tell you right now that I will be happy to speak, since you did the resolution at my behest, and why it is so important for Metro North and Long Island Railroad people also.
Let me suggest this, that I think the
And Randy-
chair of the Metro North Council can be prevailed upon to get this out,
Yeah, just
or
send it
get
to
this
me.
out to his members, and suggest that they provide a proxy vote at the PCAC in support of the
And
resolution.
let's
Randy,
let's
even
not-
mentioned me
let's not
speaking
forget
about this.
that-
I think if you
Wait a
are in
minute.
favor
Let's
of
not
this,
forget that
that you should speak in.
that clearer roads also benefits residents of the suburbs who happen to drive in. Yes, point of information.
For information,
And
also,
then Sharon.
because when Bill just said Metro North, let's also add that to Long Island Railroad Council.
No,
as
they
well.
did. They said that.
No, I only heard Metro
No.
North.
There was a reason he said that.
Yeah, but I want to add also Long Island Railroad, because as you said, Andrew, before, they don't hold a
I
tent.
believe Ira has come out in favor.
Oh,
Ira
I
is-
didn't say all of them, I just said.
I was in favor of that.
Ira, I don't have
Ira's
to
in favor of
worry,
it. I
but
won't-
the rest of them,
I wouldn't hide,
I don't
I
even see
won't
them
hide
show
it
up.
from them. I think their, their dynamics are a little different, and, I would,
Well, in here, the language
certainly-
says revenues to benefit the New York
Right.
City transit system, and while many suburbanites use it, maybe we should say, and other parts of the MTA. I
and
don't know.
other, yes,
That would be
Other
good.
MTA
All
facilities.
counties.
MTA agencies.
other
Yeah.
MTA.
Sharon.
I like hers.
I just wondered why this focuses so much on buses, when it really does improve all the transit.
Because the congestion is what's ultra slowing down the buses. That's why it's focused on in there. And the bus ridership has to, although I was at 145th and Broadway yesterday and watched as over 40 people boarded a BX-19 bus to go to the Bronx through the rear door. And I told Darrell Irick about it, and they're gonna put some people to watch us. But he said this is happening on so many bus routes. So
Yeah,
while I'm not
Brooklyn,
100%
and
sure, bus ridership has fallen. I know they're paying bus ridership has fallen. But people are leaving the buses because they're slow, and improving congestion
I know,
fixes
it's
that.
just-
Yeah.
That's why I assume it's in there.
Yeah, I mean, the revenues are general to the transit system, but the improvement to congestion helps buses.
Andrew, where they were going on the back door was packed.
No, no, somebody knocked on the back door, somebody opened it, and people fled in.
And they still do that in any borough.
Yeah,
And I have
they do.
mentioned this.
They do, and a woman came, when we had the Brooklyn Fair hearings, a woman was in tears saying, I want to do the right thing, but I see all these people boarding in the rear door and not paying.
Yes, and I know what route it was too.
Well, they're just implementing all-door boarding.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
All door boarding.
Yes.
Can we vote?
Well, we can, Stuart.
Yeah, I don't like the phrase Manhattan bus operations. Is it bus operations in Manhattan?
We can say that.
Because you have suburban buses operating in Manhattan, the Westchester B line
Right.
system. You have other
Why don't we say
systems
buses traversing Manhattan streets?
traversing, right?
Okay.
That's
Or
good.
NYC.
No, Manhattan, there's a reason for
No,
that.
that's because of the
All of
CBD,
NYC doesn't have the congestion zone, Manhattan will.
But the way this reads, it
I
makes it
agree,
sound
we'll
like
change
it's
that. And we'll,
Stoa
we'll, we'll,
buses.
we'll send the revision out to everybody, okay?
All the buses
Alan?
that are in all 5 boroughs.
I'd like to make a point
Casino
of
buses.
new business.
We're not there yet.
No, okay, but I'd like to be recognized for 30 seconds to make a complaint.
We recognize you, I know who you are.
Who am I? Well, someone around here. might
Before you had the
be-
yarmulke on, I know who you were anyway. Okay, so you've heard the proposed resolution and revisions in language. Any other comments on this before we vote?
Well, somebody has to make I was gonna make a resolution calling for a vote, so.
I'm calling for a vote.
Oh, you can call for a vote?
Can I
Oh, I
second
thought as the chair you couldn't, I'm sorry.
I don't even think we need that, but okay, you seconded. All in favor of the resolution as revised? Committee members, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's all of us, I believe. Randy, you voting in favor? Okay.
Well, I'm not a member, but yeah, I vote.
I know.
You're ex officio.
Well, wait, he mentioned no, so at least he knows, so he got.
I'm recording his vote.
Aren't you ex officio member of all the committees?
Okay, so we've done that. Let me give you a brief board report because we're running late. The lion's share of today's board meeting was devoted to the Enhanced Station Initiative and the mayor's 4 appointees' adamant opposition to it. Andy Byford made an eloquent presentation showing how stations are improved, not just cosmetically, but structurally, water remediation, platform edges, ADA strips,
Decluttering.
better lighting, decluttering of the fare collection areas, widened stairways, improved stair treads. It's in conjunction with the component station program and the $2.5 billion major station rehab program. He is also looking for major ADA additions to the system. He has outlined what stations are next in the group. We will get that presentation and disperse it to everybody. He is big on ADA additions to the system. He would like to see every station, which is, I don't believe is possible, but he also mentioned a new type of smaller passenger elevator that can be used, and perhaps that might fit into some stations where we have a real space problem. And many board members, sorry?
Consultant to make sure.
Yeah, and
Has he found any money?
they're trying to ascertain what it would cost to make every station ADA accessible.
150 stations.
Yeah. We actually, interestingly, have a little more than 25% of our 470, well, he mentioned the Staten Island station, so he went into the 490s, but a little over 25% of our stations are accessible, he said, which is the highest of any major subway system in North America, which was surprising because we do have the lion's share of stations. But he would like to see a lot more. The discussion
Not the
revolved,
percent.
what?
The percentage or the number?
Percentage.
Yeah, I mean, most of the
Percentage.
systems don't have over 100 stations, so.
It's the number, not the percent.
Yeah, I think the total.
It's, no,
number-
he said both.
He said both.
I heard both.
No, that's not true, that's
Well,
not
whatever.
true, because Boston, Chicago, Ohio.
Percent-wise.
Percent-wise,
Yeah, but
yeah.
sheer numbers were.
In sheer number, in sheer
Because we have
numbers,
more stations.
I'm not sure Boston has
Open
as
a
many
different
stations
category.
as
They're saying
we have
categories.
accessible.
No, and a lot of them are the, like the Green Line, which
Yeah.
is street level, and,
Yeah.
yeah. But in any event, they're looking to do a lot more. He gave a better, or actually an explanation of how stations were selected. The major station inspection rates stations on various components, and the stations that were selected for ESI have like a number of 40, which is too high of things being wrong. What they're aiming for is the number 20 or less on stations, so these stations had that. And in addition, there were concerns about one of the packages because the contractor selected is Judlow, and Judlow has a little bit of a checkered past with regards to Cortlandt Street, with regards to slowing down 2nd Avenue Phase 1. They're also the contractor that's been selected for the Canarsie 2 renovation. So there's a lot of work still going to be happening with Judlow, so some folks were a little concerned with that. But And there was a proposal by one of the city members to remove that group from the next group, and that did not pass. And ultimately, the board did pass the next 2 rounds of ESI. But it was not without quite a battle. Trudy?
I thought that after the mess with Jump Out with the Second Avenue subway, that they were kind of
Yes, they
forbidden,
lost,
or
they
were-
lost one of the rounds of ESI. They were taken away from that, but
Yeah.
after they had improved their performance at Cortlandt Street, they were allowed to bid again.
Did they improve their performance?
Yeah, yes, they're putting the right amount of work. If you go through there on the one, you'll see workers there all the time now.
So they're given a second chance, in
Yes,
other words?
yes.
Even though they totally messed up
Yes,
with the second?
yes. Yes, sir.
We are very noble and forgiving, yeah.
Sure.
I was considering on a couple of stations that needs to be accessible, like Parsons Boulevard on the F train, 57th Street on the NQRW that needs two sides of passenger elevator, because they got one that's going from the mezzanine to outside.
I seem to recall that station being on the group of next stations
Yes,
list,
there is.
actually.
Yes.
It's actually, just to interrupt him, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I just want to add, because you did ask me that question the other meeting at the end. There is a list of the key station lists. Thanks to Judith from the MT88 division, she has put out a list of those stations, and I did email it to PCAC staff. I don't know if you got it, and if you didn't, if you let me know, then I'll forward it again to you.
And the city has
And
requested some stations.
And 57th Street is,
Broadway Junction and Junius Livonia is
Broadway
getting done
Junction, I
too.
know
Oh,
that,
yes.
and I'm hearing now they left out one of the stations they did leave on the list that is not on the list, but it is, Sheepshead Bay is a question mark,
Okay.
which is a good sign.
Want to continue, sir?
And I, sorry, apologize, just wanted to.
Yes, that's all right. And also, there's one more station, Briarwood needs 2 sides of a wall elevators.
Van
They have
Wyck.
one elevator from mezzanine
That's
to
Van Wyck.
outside.
Yeah. Okay, we'll mention that.
All right.
Kevin?
Yes, so Vinnie missing a Chamber Street on ESI station, what happened?
Chambers Street on the
On the
JZ, is that what you're talking about? That's not for an ESI treatment, that's for the $2.5 billion station rehab treatment. That station is has much more needs than that.
That's a
That
reconstruction.
needs-
That's a reconstruction, major.
That's
Yeah,
a
we need
major.
elevators.
Absolutely.
And we need additional ESI station as well.
Well, there was another round coming, I believe. There's some stations in the Bronx that are getting done, and actually Westchester Square is getting ADA.
Oh,
Yes, and we need the elevators on the Brighton line, we need more elevators.
The plan is to get more elevators, but
Yes,
it's
and
costly too.
Possibly the Fourth Avenue local line on the ESI station needs
President
elevators.
Byford said he was going to try to assess what it would cost and what was feasible to get the entire system ADA accessible.
And a big part of the,
They
bigger part of the
messed up
presentation.
When they were building and fixing the Brighton line, Avenue J, their steps never were as high. They made those steps
I
too
mean, when they
high.
adjusted the track bed level,
Right,
yeah.
they made it worse because everybody goes over to Avenue M, or they actually will take the bus down to go to Kings Highway, or they go over to Avenue